Welcome back to another episode of the Bradley University podcast. We are your hosts. I am Angie Cooksey.
And I am Ben Jed.
And one of our favorite parts of the work that we get to do is things like this, where we get to tell the stories of Bradley University and bring in people that are doing really great and exciting and cool things every single day, even though a lot of them don't think they're doing really great and exciting and cool things every day. But we convince them that they are, and they come on the show and share a little bit about that with us. As always, we are recording live in Hilltop Studios, which is located in the lower level of University Hall. And I don't know about you, Ben, but I think one of the things that's been sort of an unexpected highlight of doing the show is that we get to showcase this place off to more people around campus. It was one of the first things Lee said today, is he hasn't been over here.
It's a very cool area. And did you know that Angie plays bass and she could play?
We've got to stop with Angie playing instruments. Somebody listened to one of our last episodes, Ben, and texted me and said, "When am I going to come play piano?" And I was like, that is a lie.
It's a wonderful idea.
It's all a lie.
She played bass in a band actually when she was a student at Bradley.
None of that is factually true. But we're gonna go to things that are factually true, and introduce our guest today, who is Lee Newton. And I adore Lee and am proud to call him a friend and a colleague on campus for a number of years. He serves as the Director of Education Abroad and International Programs, and is a professor in the Department of English. Did I get all of those things right, Lee?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, perfect. It's a very Bradley title, right? All of the things. Well, let's get started with a little bit about your background, your role at Bradley, and the journey to the seat that you sit in on campus today.
First, thank you for that great introduction. So my journey is long and very winding. So a lot of people don't know this. I was a military dependent. So my father was career Army. So I grew up bouncing all over the world. I've lived all over. That's my love and passion for study abroad and international travel. I was in the Air Force myself. So I'm an Air Force veteran. When I left the Air Force, I left with a group of friends, and the plan was engineering, right? So we all get out, we go to school. We're in Texas, we're going to school for engineering, and we're doing all of that. So I'm also a science engineering nerd. That's really my passion and my love. But along the way, I took an honors English course. An English professor sort of messed up my life and said, "Hey, you should try this," right? And I took this honors course, and I still remember Bill Matthews was the professor, and I walked out of that class thinking this was a very different world, and this is the world that I wanted to be a part of. And so I slowly shifted gears. I'm a Bradley alum. I transferred to Bradley, and one of my Air Force friends is from Central Illinois. That's how I ended up here. We both came back here. And I joined the English department. The chair at that time, Dr. Peggy Carter, met with me one summer on a day like this. We were up in the fourth floor lounge, and she talked to me about all things English and took me under her wing, even though I was a non-traditional student at the time. And that's how I ended up in English. I graduated from Bradley. I met my wife. She's also an alum from the dietetics department. She's a dietitian at OSF. Went off to grad school at Cincinnati. After Cincinnati, I went to George Mason out in Fairfax, and then started looking for jobs, like all grad students who graduate. And the circle just, as we were looking, I'm willing to move everywhere because I've lived everywhere, but my wife is from Central Illinois. She's from Farmington, and so she wasn't, right? So the circle kept getting smaller and smaller, and fortunately a position opened up here at Bradley, and that's how I ended up here. So
that's exciting. So you have a long history with Bradley. You've had kids that have gone to school here. Can you talk about the process of actually recruiting your students to come, your own children to come to Bradley, and how that has been an experience for you, and like, what does Bradley mean to you and your family?
So first and foremost, Bradley is our love and passion. It's my, outside of my immediate family, it's the number one thing in my life, and it always has been. I wouldn't say that I really recruited my children. So we have 3 boys at home right now. One just graduated from Bradley, from Interactive Media User Experience. I have 2 more here now. One of them I knew would come to Bradley just because of his social skills, social being, etc., it was a better fit for him. One I thought for certain was going elsewhere, and then he waited.
He did think that. I remember that.
Yeah, and he actually waited until the very last moment, and then broke the news that he was coming to Bradley. So of course we were pleased and we were happy. So again, I wouldn't say that I recruited them the way I try to recruit other students who come to us. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. But what was their experience, or what was your experience as a parent versus you've had this long experience as an alum and also a faculty member?
So I will say that the first two things that struck me, so I came to orientation as if I was a parent. And the two presentations that stood out to me most were, one, Chief Josko. When he finished, even though I know Bradley is an incredibly safe place and we take care of our students, I felt even more at ease hearing him. And then Ann Hollis, who I think is an unsung hero on this campus, her presentation, if you're a nervous parent and you're sending children off to school for the first time, or you're sending them, out of state, what have you, Ann will put you at ease and let you know that everything's going to be okay. And I just felt I felt relieved, and I felt pleased that on the non-academic side, which we don't get to see that often, everything was in order and everything was just first rate. So I was really happy with that.
I love that. Kind of transitioning to the academic side. And one of the things that I appreciate most about you, Lee, is that you have a really wide view of the realities of campus life. And I think you are always really fair about kind of what that experience looks like. And I think part of that comes from being in liberal arts and sciences, and part of that comes from your role in study abroad. And so I want to make sure we kind of cover both of those hats that you've worn over the years. You and I have talked a lot about liberal arts and sciences over the years, and why not only is it so foundational to the Bradley experience, but why it's kind of needed more than ever in today's world. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And I think if you're following our field, we'll just say higher education at the university college level, you'll see. So in the past couple of years, for instance, the humanities has just taken a beating. Every headline, the numbers are dropping, et cetera. But most recently, what you'll see is a number of schools that are doubling down on their humanities programs. I think liberal arts education, and that's not to say that if you're in a professional track, I want to be, a nurse, or I want to be an engineer or an accountant. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a place for everyone. But one of the great things about the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and I hope my colleagues agree, and the deans, is that we just love learning. I already told you science and engineering are really my background, and those are my passions. But I love literature. I love government. And I think our students do as well. So one of the things we do well in our college is we find a place for those students who have multiple passions and multiple loves. Within my home department, within English, probably 50% of our students are double majors, depending on what they want to do. And if they're not double majors, they have at least one minor or two minors, and preferably those are away from the field of English. So they might be in Spanish. Marketing is probably one of our most popular as well. And the end goal is, yes, they have these multiple loves and passions, but we're trying to make them more marketable as well. We're very practical. We know what the marketplace says for English majors in general, and the more marketable we can make them, the greater their success will be afterwards. And then we also know that once you graduate, there's a very good chance that within 5 years, you're going to change to a different field or discipline. 5 more years, 10 years later, you're probably going to change again. And being marketable and having a very broad and wide array of skill sets is just going to be beneficial for you. And I think the liberal arts and sciences type education gives that to our students.
I did not put this question on here, so I'm just going to take a left turn. But listening to what you were just talking about, I'm curious. There's so much conversation around AI right now, and what you were just talking about careers changing and the value of writing and thinking. How do you think that's going to play a part and a factor in our upcoming students' experience and how they think about education?
Yeah, it's definitely going to impact it. It already has. It's going to impact it across many fields and disciplines, but in ours in particular, because we rely on reading and writing, because they bring some skill sets. And we know that students are already using AI to help them write. Some of them are using it, unfortunately, to do all of their writing. But if you are, so for instance, I'm a sports fan. I read every day. I read a lot of little short articles about baseball, and I can tell the ones that are written by AI.
Sure.
Because they're just not very good, right? and so, for instance, that's one of the things I do in my class. I'll have AI generate a piece of writing, and we'll talk about what's good about it, but also what's weak and what could be better. So, yes, AI is going to impact the field of writing and what people do across many disciplines, advertising, marketing, et cetera, grant writing, but it's still going to take that person, that great employee who can take that writing, because they're the ones who truly know their audience. And audience is the most important thing. AI doesn't know your audience. You can tell it who your audience is. It still can't write to your audience. So, for instance, if you were trying to write a grant to the federal government asking for, $200,000 for a project, AI can give you a template, but it's not going to be able to tailor your grant so that your odds for success are far greater.
It's not creating a persuasive message necessarily.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So
That's one of the classes that you always talk about is the grant writing class. I literally want to take Lee's grant writing class because I'm just so interested in the things that you're
Angie
doing
wants
there.
to take everybody's class.
Literally every time somebody comes here, I'm like, I would also like to audit that class. But you have a lot of non-English majors take that class, right?
Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but I
should have more non-English majors take
I
that
guess
class.
it depends on how you count them, right? So they're usually education majors who are still tied to English, and then English majors as well who are going out into, usually their plan is to go into the not-for-profit sector or something of that nature.
It's so much of that experience. And so I said we were going to talk about both sides of all of the hats that you wear.
Sure.
You just got back from a study abroad trip.
I did.
You were in Rome, correct?
I was in Rome and I was in Dubrovnik, Croatia.
Oh, nice.
So,
what makes study abroad? So every college has study abroad. Everybody talks about it. Everybody does it. Yep. What makes study abroad experience at Bradley unique and different and valuable to the student experience? Because I think we should have more students doing study abroad here. I think it's so cool.
I agree. I wish it was a graduation requirement for everyone.
I don't have that much pull, but I will share that.
Yes. The ones that are the most unique are our short-term programs.
Yeah.
So we have these 2-week programs that occur during our January interim between the semesters and then in the May interim, right after the spring semester ends. Those are great because those are Bradley faculty. So you're going abroad with your friends or other Bradley students. You're taking a course with a Bradley faculty member who you may or may not have had before. Your directors are all going to be Bradley faculty and staff as well. And it's a first-rate academic experience. So I don't want to, say that all schools aren't doing this, but we do know that many schools treat study abroad as we're going to grab a bunch of kids, we're going to jump on a plane, and we're going to go somewhere. And so there's not as much training. The academic focus is not there. And in our programs, it's still 100% academic focus. They have to meet their contact hours. Every faculty member has a great syllabus. The wonderful thing is they use the location wherever they are as part of their course. So they're going to go out on class excursions, they're going to get to do things they would have never done otherwise. John Nielsen, when we were in London, he was teaching a history Western Civ course. Because of his contacts, we all go to the British Museum, like any tourist. But he got them into what I call the bowels of the British Museum, down in the basement in the vaults where all the students are wearing white gloves and they're handling these tablets that haven't been in front of the public in a very long time. And so, they get that kind of an experience. Jessica Nig just had a course in Rome, her FCS. It's been the first time we've run an FCS in a long time. Food and world cultures, right? So who doesn't want to go to Rome and take that course?
Sure.
And run around the city and
add that to my list too.
Have all of these great meals. And most recently, so I've worked with Dr. Kelly McConaughey in biology twice now in the last year. I followed her class, a spectacular class in Denmark over spring break. And she was just taking biology majors who were signed up in other courses on campus, and they ran around in Denmark. They went out to incinerator. They studied sustainability. But most recently in Dubrovnik, I followed her because I told you I'm a science nerd. So I followed her, and we went on this excursion along the coastline, and she had me in tidal pools, and we were looking at sea cucumbers. And that's, you're not going to get that in Peoria, right? So these biology students just had a first-rate experience. She got to teach things and show things and showcase things that she just wouldn't be able to do otherwise on campus.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful experience.
That's so cool.
That sounds great. So I believe I was probably in one of the first classes that you ever taught. And I took quite a few classes actually from Lee, and I was not a very good writer. And I would say that I was a much better writer after taking your classes. I still probably wasn't a very good writer, but your classes really drove me to realize that I could go to graduate school and something that I'd really want to do. And I think that your passion for learning is very influential to students. So my question for you is, can you tell a student experience that you think is unique to Bradley? Or can you tell a story about a student that is unique to Bradley?
Wow. So, well, thank you for saying that about my class, because one never knows how students feel when they walk out the door. Usually, right? They you hear from them later, and then you realize, this or that. After 25 years, I've got a lot of student stories. So there's not one in particular. I will say that my philosophy, and some of this just stems from my background. I have an affinity for our students who are veterans. I have an affinity for students who are first gen, because I was. I have an affinity and a love for our transfer students, because I was, and my wife was as well. And this is going to sound really cheesy. I try to look at all of the students, especially now that I'm older, probably not when I was younger, but I look at all of those students as if they are my children. So there's sort of this parenting mode, and I know that flies in the face of a lot of research in academia, et cetera. But I think if you push them to expand their boundaries, et cetera, that helps a lot. One of the things I do, every student, and let's just be honest, isn't always at the top or of their A game. It doesn't mean they don't have an A game. You just have to find that. And it's no different than when I was in the military. You would have people who just weren't applying themselves. And again, this seems counterintuitive, but when you have those students, what I do is I give them more responsibility. I don't take responsibility away from them. I give them more. And I think more often than not, you will find that those students will rise to the occasion if you show that you trust them and you believe them, and if you don't write them off as, oh, you're just a struggling student. If you show, hey, you may be struggling, but this is probably why, and we can overcome this. And then you give them more responsibility, and they usually step up. So that's a teaching philosophy that I just take into any course that I teach. I also do it in study abroad, because one always worries about behavior in study abroad, et cetera. And it's the same process there. You give them responsibility, you treat them with respect, and you treat them professionally, and they will almost always rise to the occasion.
Wow. I feel like that might fly in the face of academia research, as you mentioned, but I feel like what you just described is so core to the heart of the Bradley experience, and why people come here and stay here is because they have people like you that see past the moment.
Genuinely care about the experience.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Lee, can you share something that people maybe don't know about you or your Bradley experience? I feel like we've learned a lot today.
I feel like I've already shared.
Lee was like, please be nice to me on the podcast.
Yeah, shared off an awful lot of that. Wow. I don't, so I proposed to my wife on this campus, as a matter of fact. So that's
I need more details.
So the Lydia Moss, she'll kill me when
we will send this to her for review first.
So ultimately, I am a romantic, and I had it all planned out, et cetera. And I just couldn't wait. Aww. And so where the Lydia Moss statue is right now, that wasn't always there, but the circle was there, and it was trees, and it had a lot of beautiful flowers and stuff, and that's where I proposed to her, right out there in front of where Lydia's standing now.
Oh my gosh. We weirdly have a very similar proposal story, Lee, because my husband also could not wait. We met here at Bradley, and he proposed over the lunch hour of work one day at Laura Bradley Park with Subway sandwiches. It was
nice.
Yours is much more romantic and planned, but similar.
Well, I didn't provide food, so your husband gets
not sure that Subway was the win on that. But one of the last questions that we always ask people, and we get pretty much the same response every time we do it, but it's one of my favorite questions. We talk a lot, and we bring people on the show and want to learn about you, and they often then talk about the Bradley experience, and they talk about how great things are here. But I love learning more about the individual people. And so one of our questions is, what makes you unapologetically exceptional at what you do? And what are you great at?
Oof. That's a tough one because you're asking someone who doesn't like to talk to him about himself, right? I will say in the classroom, and this comes from, I guess, student evaluations, other people mentioning, is that I ask a lot of questions. I'm good at asking questions, and I'm good at getting students to question themselves, because I believe that's what higher education does, regardless of your beliefs or values, et cetera. We all come to education with our own baggage and our own personal belief systems. But I believe that every student, and it should be a required course, Andy Kelly's logic course, I believe every student should be able to think logically and deconstruct either text or arguments, et cetera. So that's where that Socratic method of questioning oneself and others comes into play. But when a student puts forth an argument, they have to, I will, even if I agree with them 100%, I will try to tear that argument down by asking them questions and getting them to question themselves. So, you know, I wouldn't apologize for that. I know some people don't like that Socratic method of just asking questions. They don't see it as teaching, but I would disagree. I think we learn the most by questioning ourselves. It's sort of a self-analysis, right? I guess that's all I've got for that one.
I
Does
love
that
that.
help?
That's great. You are driving the students to find the answers.
Yeah.
So.
Was that your
We hope.
experience with Lee?
We hope.
Yeah, I mean,
So?
that was a long time ago. I got here.
Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience?
You know, you have to come check out Bradley. It sounds corny, I know, but you just have to trust us when we tell you how much our staff and faculty care about our students. And this is not, one of my colleagues, Tim Kelso, will tell you, this is not a transactional education where you're just going to pay your money, we're going to give you a piece of paper, you're going to walk away. This is a transformational education. You're going to learn a lot about yourselves, and the people do truly care. I'll give you an example. Brad Eskridge, who teaches in Study Abroad with me, he still meets some of his classes for lunch periodically. And, you know, they may have been on his Study Abroad trip 2 years ago, and they still get together. And he checks in on them all the time. We have lots of faculty and staff who do things like that.
That's really sweet.
Any closing remarks?
No, I think we're good. This is great.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lee, for coming on the show. It is everybody's always a little bit nervous, but it's so fun to get to learn about the individuals and really the humans that are here on this campus, and that's the goal and the hope of the show. So thank you, everybody, to listening to another episode of the Bradley University podcast. We will be back with another episode here pretty soon, and as always, go Bradley.
Thank you.
Thank you.